How are you all doing this lovely afternoon? It's a great day, a great Monday. I'm sitting here in Manhattan in my office, and I thought I would just get on here and have a lovely conversation with all of you. Lovely day. I want to thank everyone who is part of this community. I just really want to thank everyone who is part of this community. But I especially want to thank those who advertise these streams because, we can't count on the algorithms. YouTube is not putting these streams up in the front. The media, the Facebook and all of that is not encouraging people to get on here. So everyone who tweets out these lives and brings people on is doing a great service. And we deeply appreciate it. We deeply, deeply appreciate it. We deeply, deeply appreciate it. Folks, it's a lovely, lovely day. I thought I would just get on here this afternoon and have a conversation with all of you. Now, the way we generally do the show here, for those who may be joining us, the way we do the show is that I open with my remarks. I give my opening remarks. And then from there, we do our roll call, where I call you out as I see you. I read off names and locations from the chat. And then I answer your super chat questions. That's how we do it. It's a 3-part show. Part 1 is me talking. Part 2 is the roll call, where we call out everyone. And part 3 is me answering your super chat questions. You give me a super chat, I will give you an answer. It may not be the answer that you want. Now, folks, just to clue everyone in on a little situation, for those who may not be aware, today I did challenge Sticks and Hammer, the notorious internet libertarian, to a debate. And he turned me down. He's happy to debate Richard Spencer, a white nationalist, but apparently I don't have enough Ku Klux Klan garb. I wear a suit rather than white sheets. I don't advocate racism and hate crimes enough to debate Mr. Sticks and Hammer. So he did turn me down, which is disappointing, very disappointing. However, while he's not willing to actually debate me and engage with me about ideas, he has called on his followers to troll the shit out of this stream. That's why we have mods. So mods will do their jobs, and we do appreciate the advertising. So bring it on, bring it on. We survive. Trust me, I've dealt with the onslaught of hate from the synthetic left, and I will deal with the onslaught of hate from libertarians. So that's just something to be aware of. If you see a lot of crazy things in the chat, you know where it came from. It came from Mr. Sticks and Hammer, who is too cowardly to actually debate me about economics, but instead wants to incite his fans to go after us. We'll survive. We've been through far, far worse, haven't we? So, folks, I thought since we're dealing with this interesting situation, that I might actually do something that might, on the surface of it, seem a little bit boring. Folks, I like to entertain you. I like to speak in funny voices, tell you crazy stories and stuff, but sometimes you just have to talk about raw economic data. That's what you have to do. You have to just talk about numbers. So for my opening remarks, before I get to your super chats, I am going to just read off some raw economic data. Folks, this is the Center for Political Innovation Educational Manual. We are city builders. And in it, we have statistics about the reality of capitalism and what free market economics did. Why invade Iraq? Specifically, very good question, writing it down. Folks, in 1991, the Soviet Union was dissolved, and the socialist economic system of the Soviet Union was broken apart. Libertarian free market economic policies were imposed on Russia. The Russian Federation got economic advice from the IMF and from the World Bank. And Jeffrey Sachs, the free market economist from the United States out of Columbia University, went and advised the Russian government, and free market economics was imposed in Russia. And I just want to read you what the results of a libertarian experiment in Russia was. More than 80% of Russian farms had gone bankrupt, and roughly 70,000 state factories closed, creating an epidemic of unemployment. 74 million Russians lived in poverty. 25% of Russians, almost 37 million, lived in poverty described as desperate. With farms and factories closed down amid the dismantling of socialism, Russia became a captive market for the imperialists. It was forced to import its food from the United States and steel and raw material from Western countries. Wealthy capitalists reaped super profits. Among those who joined the plunder was Bill Browder of Hermitage Capital Management, now featured as an expert on Vladimir Putin on Western television. He has also testified before Congress. Vladimir Gusev said the years of criminal capitalism have killed off 10% of our population. Indeed, the population of Russia decreased by 6.6 million between 1992 and 2006. U.S. economist Gunder Frank used the term economic genocide and was echoed by Russian Vice President Alexander Rutskoy, who said children and the elderly had been the hardest hit. Former U.S. Senator Bill Bradley described what he observed in Russia when working with the Clinton administration in the 1990s. Quote, 30% unemployment, rampant inflation, pensions gone, savings gone, 30 or 40 years, it's all gone. No jobs, a few people doing very well who bought all the assets from the state, but the average person, no. Sources on 10%. It was an absolute nightmare, the fall of the Soviet Union. The rise of Russian President Vladimir Putin, now declared to be an enemy by the voices representing Western capitalism, marked a turning point as the Russian state apparatus stepped in to stop the chaos of the market. Putin's academic dissertation spoke of utilizing national champions, state-controlled megacorporations to reboot the economy. Putin gradually put his college thesis into practice. Gazprom and Rosneft were put at the center of an economy that was then reorganized around the state. Gradually moving back towards elements of central planning, the Putin government raised living standards, restoring order from a disaster created by free markets under Yeltsin. Describing the first 8 years of Putin's presidency, during the first 8 years of Putin's presidency, poverty was reduced by 14%, wages doubled. Russia experienced economic expansion of 70%. Between 2007 and 2014, Russia's gross domestic product increased from 764 billion to 2,196 billion. Russia is no longer a captive market for the West. Folks, libertarianism has failed everywhere it has ever been tried. Neoliberalism, which is actually the academic name for libertarian economic policies, the economic theories of Milton Friedman, of Friedrich von Hayek, Ludwig von Mises, the Austrian school, the Montpellier Society, the ideas that were dreamed up in Rockefeller think tanks, these concepts and ideas have failed everywhere they have ever been put into practice. In Chile, in 1973, the democratically elected government was toppled in a military coup backed by the United States. Augusto Pinochet became the dictator of Chile, and unlike other military juntas and regimes throughout Latin America, he did not use the military to stabilize the economy with state industries, etc. Pinochet implemented free market policies, and the result was 30% unemployment, a mass episode of malnutrition, children fainting in classes throughout the country's schools because they were malnourished and could not eat, and they lost food subsidies. Food subsidies to low-income families were cut off. The Chilean economic situation following the 1973 coup was widely described as an economic disaster. Chile was economically demolished by libertarian economic policies. Birthday. The Chilean economic miracle that libertarians frequently invoke did not happen until the 1980s. And what happened in the 1980s? Pinochet adopted non-libertarian economic policies. Pinochet started renationalizing industries. Pinochet kicked the Chicago boys, the Chicago school, out of the country and picked up the pieces from the economic disaster created by libertarianism. Libertarianism in Chile was an economic nightmare, according to the National Association of Manufacturers, according to Naomi Klein in her book, The Shock Doctrine, according to every study. And in fact, due to libertarian economic policies in Chile, there was such a disaster in terms of economic policies, that there is still widespread there are people who had malnutrition, and the UN conducted a study on the long-term effects of childhood malnutrition on people's development. Fascinating. Because of Pinochet's cutting of food subsidies, because of his rapid, forcing of free market policies, because of that, there was a very, very rapid increase in childhood malnutrition. And the UN began studying the long-term effects on motor skills. People that are malnourished as children tend to have poor motor skills as they develop. Their ability to keep their balance and such is affected by not having nutrition in the time that their body is developing. But libertarian economics were a disaster in Bolivia as well. In Bolivia, we saw the disaster of libertarian economics. Right? In Bolivia, even the water was privatized. Jeffrey Sachs, a libertarian economist, his views have significantly shifted in more recent years, but he oversaw the privatization of the water in Chile. If you collected rainwater on your roof, it was considered to be basically to be stealing from Nestle or Coca-Cola or one of these U.S. corporations. Neoliberal economics has wrecked country after country after country. Country after country after country has suffered under neoliberalism. All across the Eastern Bloc, when free market capitalism was implemented, it destroyed countries. It brought in sex trafficking, mass unemployment, and poverty. And as I read you the statistics, the way Russia's economy improved was when Putin came in and started reasserting state control. Free market capitalism was a disaster in the 1990s in the former Soviet Union. It's been a disaster in Latin America, and it's been a disaster in the United States of America. Libertarians should love the United States of America. It is the most liberal, most libertarian economically country in the Western world. No country in the Western world is as libertarian as the United States of America is at this time. The United States of America, we've decided, we don't need public schools. Schools for profit are better. We got charter schools. All right, so we've dismantled our public school system and implemented all kinds of free market policies. Furthermore, the United States, we have implemented prisons for profit. Right? Imagine that, right? We don't need the government to actually run prisons. Let's pay private companies to lock people in jail. What could possibly go wrong with that? Great libertarian policy. The United States of America, I love the numbers. Look at these numbers, folks. Amazing numbers on this live. People really want to hear what I have to say. The United States of America, they have implemented private military contractors, the wet dream of anarcho-capitalists, libertarians. Instead of having the military, regular government military, the idea is that we increasingly have corporations who get hired and make profits from war. What could possibly go wrong with that? All across the United States, many local municipalities are too poor to maintain paved roads. They have gotten so in debt to banks. There's a shortage of revenue that in 27 different states, they are unpaving the roads. That is American capitalism. Unpaving the roads because the government is so weak that it cannot maintain paved roads. In Nicaragua, a socialist country, people are rising up out of poverty and they're building new roads all over the country. In China, where the government controls the banks and the industries and they have 5-year economic plans, they're building new highways and bridges and railways and high-speed trains all across the country. In Bolivia, under the leadership of Evo Morales, they paved roads all over the country. But in capitalist America, where we think profits come first, where we are addicted to the Ayn Rand ideology that says individualism above all else, the country is falling apart. We have bought into the insane philosophy that says the government is best, that governs least. That the state has no obligation to raise people up out of poverty. The state has no obligation to manage the economy. The magic of the free market will somehow take care of it. And as a result, millions of Americans have been left behind. Millions of Americans have been left behind by the disaster of free market economics. Our country has been put up for sale to the highest bidder. Big banks and international corporations have sunk their fangs into America. Living standards are driving down. The same thing that these international banks and corporations have done to Latin America, to Eastern Europe, to Africa and Asia, they are now doing to Wisconsin and Minnesota and Alabama and Texas and Ohio. Capitalism, the rule of profits, the greed of international banks and corporations, the devaluing of human life, the reducing of state power, the breaking down of individualism. All of this has resulted in an economic disaster. It has resulted in the United States falling further and further into poverty. While big corporations and big banks make lots and lots of profits, the living standards of the American people have been dropping lower and lower and lower. Folks, what was the greatest period of economic expansion in all of human history? What was the greatest period of economic expansion? I think we got a super chat there about Huey Long. We'll talk about that. The greatest economic expansion in all of human history was the post-World War II economic boom. right? What was the post-World War II economic boom? That was Soviet Union using state central planning to rebuild the country. That was the Soviet Union mobilizing the population to rebuild. That was Eastern Europe being massively reconstructed under the leadership of communists. That was China getting its first power plants and its first steel mills, all constructed by state central planning. What's this here? Is it a benefit or a detriment for a political movement to have no concrete demands? Okay, we'll talk about that. No demands. Detriment. Furthermore, it was the period of the Bonapartist military juntas throughout South and Central America. It was the period in which there was widespread expansion of government control of industries in places like South Korea. You had the rise of Park Chung-hee, state-controlled steel industry. South America, you had the rise of Peronism. Peronism, what do we got here? All right. What else do we have? It was the rise of social democracy in Europe, the height of social democratic welfare states. That's when France and West Germany and Britain adopted huge welfare states with, government control and national health care services. All of these things. That was the largest period of economic expansion in all of history, a time when there was no libertarianism. The Western European world was having social democracy, the communist world was having state central planning, and in the developing world, the US-aligned regimes were asserting government control. The largest period of economic expansion in all of human history was a period when there was no libertarianism. No libertarianism at all. Libertarianism was basically, we got something good here or no? I love when people pay to insult me. That's like great. Just keep it coming, folks. It was a period in which there was no libertarianism. The rise of neoliberal economics in the early 1970s, with the Pinochet coup, the rise of neoliberalism, was also the decrease in living standards around the world. That's the reality. It's the reality. Free market policies make countries poorer. If you all want to live in a free market country, I would recommend going to Haiti. Haiti is a great example of what capitalism has to offer. One quick thing here, folks. I may have to just jump out for one quick second. Here? Wow, that's a miracle. Wow. Well, there we go. Here we are. And libertarianism is a fraud. It's a complete fraud. It's a complete and utter fraud. All capitalism is crony capitalism. 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 There has never been a single place where one group of people is able to enrich itself and have astronomically larger amounts of wealth than everybody else, and yet somehow they don't rig the government to work in their favor. Nowhere. Political compass meme. Nowhere has that ever happened. When one group of people, when they have astronomically larger amounts of wealth than everyone else, they tend to, at that point, rig the government political compass, that's a good one. Rig the government to work in their favor. That's the way these things work. Libertarianism is a delusion. It was paid for by the Rockefellers. It was paid for by the ultra-rich. And it has impoverished country after country after country around the world. And it has furthermore impoverished the United States of America. We don't have paved roads throughout the United States because, we can't have the government do stuff. All across the United States, we don't have good paid teachers anymore. It's better to have schools for profit with no labor unions, right? All across the United States, the lives of American working families have been destroyed by opioids. Why? We can't regulate the drugs. We gotta deregulate the drug market, right? Prisons for profit. Millions of lives destroyed in a prison state. Why? It's always better if you have prisons run for profit. The United States is a libertarian paradise. It's a libertarian paradise. That's what we've got. That's what we've got here in the United States. We have free market libertarian economics. And the fact that this sticks and hammer fool refuses to actually engage me in a debate. But, that's a good one. Bosch. No, revolution. In his lifetime. The fact that people won't debate me, but instead they unleash their minions to jump into my chat and pay me money to insult me, kind of reveals how ridiculous it is. Libertarianism is a grift. Libertarianism is a hustle. But what has made countries strong? Socialism. Who defeated the Nazis in World War II? Who was the first country in outer space? How is it that Russia, an agrarian, impoverished country, became a superpower? How is it that China went from being one of the poorest countries in the world to now being the second largest economy in the world? Why is it that a little island called Cuba, is at this point known all over the world for its achievements in terms of healthcare and education, literacy campaigns, and international volunteers? Why is it? Why? Why has this happened? Why is Nicaragua, the socialist country in Latin America, anarcho-communism, that's a good one. Why is its economy zooming ahead? Anything good here? Why is its economy moving ahead while Guatemala, a free market country, has people fleeing along the border? While Honduras, a free market country that had its socialist government overthrown by the United States, has people fleeing along the border, trying to escape. Right? And tell me, if libertarians are against these wars, why? All these wars that the United States wages, do you know what they're doing? All these wars are waged for the purpose of implementing free markets. Under socialism, Libya had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. Gaddafi's Islamic socialist government had the lowest poverty rates, the highest life expectancy, full health care, full education. And people from all across the African continent were trying to get to Libya to get some of the benefits of socialism. In fact, Gaddafi had a policy where all African people who could get to Libya could get given employment. So from all across Africa, you had Libyans trying to get into Libya to get some of the benefits of socialism. But it was NATO bombs that libertarians are supposedly against that imposed the free market, that bombed the socialist government out of existence. And under capitalism, now that Libya has joined the global Adam Smith, Milton Friedman free trade nightmare, Libyans are drowning in the Mediterranean trying to get out. In fact, furthermore, there are modern-day slave markets created by the free market in Libya. Right? Has Iraq gotten better since the United States bombed and destroyed and removed the Ba'athist Arab socialist government? Right? Anything fun happening in the chat? Yes, I do keep doing my thing, and thank you. No, I mean, look, I'm just saying what needs to be said. Libertarianism is a fraud. It's philosophy that says might is right, greed is good, is destroying the United States of America. I'm from a small town in Ohio, folks, and it breaks my heart to see people who worked hard their whole lives, who suffered, look at what has happened to the United States of America. Free trade, the greed of international bankers and corporations, the unregulated capitalist market has destroyed so many lives. Capitalism and free market policies and the belief that somehow the magical market will solve things has driven so many communities in the United States into poverty while making a small group of corporations wealthier and wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. I'll write that down. I'm writing down the legit super chats that are coming in, and we'll get to answer them. I actually may have to step away at some point, but I'm having a great time with this now. I'm going to try to make this last as long as I can. I actually just got a message. I have to do something here at the office. But we'll be back on in a little bit, but I'm going to try. I want to see if I can just keep this going just a little bit longer. The numbers are amazing. I mean, these are great numbers, right? These are great numbers. I mean, it's funny, you know, supposedly an international communist conspiracy controls YouTube, but I have never had anything good like these numbers. I mean, sending the people who believe in the ideology of American capitalism, the people who believe in the ideology pumped out in America's government schools, sending them to cause a problem in my chat has been amazing. I wish this would happen more often. This is amazing numbers. I mean, the activity on the account today is tremendous. This is great. This is just beautiful. Just beautiful. I'm trying to hold off getting off as long as I can. Only socialism can save America. The banks and the factories and the industries, the means of production, the centers of economic power should be controlled by the people. We need a government of action to fight for working families. We need a government of action to fight for working families. We need popular power. Capitalism and the rule of profits has driven the United States and so many countries around the world into poverty. With state central planning, Russia and China became superpowers. With state central planning, many countries around the world have had huge achievements. Yeah, if you like capitalism, move to Haiti. That is a free market capitalist country. Move to Honduras, move to Guatemala, move to Nigeria. That's a great free market capitalist country. Capitalism is destroying the world. There are two great enemies facing America's working people right now. Two great ideological enemies. Number one is libertarianism. Libertarianism, the philosophy that says all impediments to the big corporations, all protections for working families should be eliminated, needs to be removed. The second impediment is synthetic leftism, cancel culture, fake leftism, the culture war being waged to destroy the country. That needs to be eliminated as well. What we need is a government of action that will fight for working families. What we need is popular power. What we need more than ever, is a government of action that will fight for working families. I've laid out, and I guess this is how I'll jump off because I do have to do something here at the office, but I've got the super chats to answer, we got the roll call, all of that. So let me I just have to, before I go, I will name the 4 steps that will save the United States of America. Step number 1, a mass program of reconstruction, raising people out of poverty with a mass government program of reconstruction, mobilizing to build new highways, bridges, all throughout the United States, high-speed railway, a mobilization to reconstruct the country. Step number 2 would be public control over our natural resources. America's coal, America's timber, America's natural gas, these things, America's oil, they should be public property, and the profits from our natural resources should go into the public budget. Step number 3, public control of banking. No more private corporation, Federal Reserve, no more private lending institutions. A monopoly on credit in the hands of the state. Step number 4 would be enacting Roosevelt's economic Bill of Rights. The right to a job, the right to housing, the right to education. And if we carried out those 4 steps, we could see the rebirth of the United States of America. We could see the economic rebirth of the country. If we got rid of the toxic, individualist, greed is good philosophy, we put the people's needs first and reorganized the economy, life could get significantly better in the United States of America. Now, folks, unfortunately, I'm going to have to kill this stream. I'll be back on within the next 15 minutes to answer your super chat questions and talk about the rest of what we're going to talk about here. Interesting day for sure. I'm going to kill this stream. I'll be back on in 10 to 15 minutes.